Sanders has done a better job coaching the East Tennessee State football team this year than he did last year. Hi, I'm Marky Billson. I'm going to tell you why. ETSU comes off a 38-33 victory against Mercer. Quay Holmes rushes for 255 yards. It's a school record. It is the largest victory that the Buccaneers have had against a Southern Conference opponent since defeating VMI in 2017 by the score of 24-6. Now, if you're saying, well, VMI, weak sister of the conference, blah, blah, blah. When did ETSU have a victory by more than 5 points against a Southern Conference competitor prior to the VMI game? You have to go back to 2003. Remember the penultimate game of the original Buccaneer football squad? 68-7 against Chattanooga. Gotta go back that far. Yeah, long way. So, and it's only 5 points that they win by. But let's talk about Randy Sanders. Last year, ETSU wins their first conference championship. A tie, yes, I know Wofford got the bid, but the way it officially goes, they tied for the championship, so they're the champions of the Southern Conference, first ever Southern Conference title, and it was the first championship of any kind for ETSU football. I know they made the playoffs in 1996, but it was, at-large bid. First conference title for the Buccaneers since 1969, a span of 37 seasons, taking into consideration the hiatus of the program. Last year, ETSU got a lot of breaks. They won 6 games by 3 or more points. Interesting enough. This year, they have lost 6 games by 1 score. Well, that would seem to indicate that some sort of coaching, some sort of strategic decision was better last year than this year. But was it? Remember, in 2018, East Tennessee State was given 2 games. One by Furman when Dwan Blair, sort of calling for a fair catch that would have put the ball in a 27-all tie at the 25-yard line for Furman's final drive. No, he downed the ball at the 3 for whatever reason. That gave ETSU the field position that Dylan Weigel could collect the game-winning safety, and ETSU won 29-27. Okay. Also, let's not forget Will Horton missing the chip shot field goal in overtime for Western Carolina. That was a victory for Western Carolina that they threw away, and ETSU lost. Really, had it not been for 2 mistakes that ETSU so fortunate to receive, they would be 6-5 last year, and the 3-8 record this year might not look quite so bad. Again, ETSU touched by an angel last year. This year, they've been touched by the devil, as 6 losses by 1 score in the conference would indicate. But let's take a look at these 2 teams. This year, ETSU has been the victim of injuries. They've had to play essentially a third-string quarterback in Trey Mitchell the majority of the time. It's because Casey Weldon, the Miami transfer, was injured during the very first scrimmage, and Chance Thrasher was injured in the first game of the season against Appalachian State, never really to return for whatever reason. But I think there's a method to the Randy Sanders madness. In addition to the quarterbacks, though, look, Jacob Sawyers missed a game 2 weeks ago. And what about the game against the Citadel? Citadel's an option team. They don't score a whole lot. They put up 31 points on the Buccaneers. Why? Because the Bucs were down at various times in the game. Jared Folks, Tyree Robinson, Nasir Player, and Blake Bockrath. That's basically everybody who's good on their defense. So that's why the Citadel was able to complete basically 4 long passes and beat ETSU in that game. Now, it's not as if Randy Sanders has made every correct move this year, but I want to say something about the quarterbacks. I didn't quite get it before, but the way it stands right now, Trey Mitchell, who was really the quarterback of record in the victory against Mercer, or excuse me, not Trey Mitchell, but Tyler Rydell. Tyler Rydell, who was the quarterback of record in the victory against the Bears, came off the bench. He can even play next week against Vanderbilt, and he'll still be able to be redshirted because he only played in 4 games. Small guy, probably needs the extra workout and peanut butter sandwiches and all of that. Also, Chance Thrasher can get a medical redshirt, only played 2 games. Certainly Weldon can. And so now you're really only burning up 1 year of quarterback eligibility in a lost season. There's a method to Randy Sanders' madness. Now, yes, certainly, criticize him all the livelong day. Why didn't he kick the field goal against Chattanooga? What if he goes for 2 against Western Carolina? Why in the world did Nate Atkins, in the game against the Citadel, in the final, effectively the final play of the game, why did he cut his turn a yard shy of the end zone and not in the end zone? Why did he do that? Why was Phil Barnett able to make the game-winning tackle at the 1, giving back memories of Ken Houston and all this? Okay, sure, that goes down to coaching. Maybe the receiver didn't run the right route. Certainly 2 strategic calls. Although I do think, criticizing Sanders for not going for 2 against Western, it's a little chintzy. But let's take a look at last year, because I'm not sure Randy Sanders really coached the team all that well. It was the first thing that happened. The offensive coordinator quit to take a entry-level position at Baylor. Marcus Satterfield, an ETSU grad. Then right after that, you had the whole Tyree Robinson incident, where a letter of reprimand and a brief suspension befall Randy Sanders because he slaps Tyree Robinson during a practice. Robinson turns out probably to be the best player on his team. He was ranked as the best player in the Southern Conference by SouthernPigskin.com at the start of the season. Sanders chooses the wrong quarterback to play in Logan Marky, and then when he finally goes to Austin Herink, he talks about how slow in numerous press conferences Austin Herink is. And that's probably going to prevent Herink from really any sort of a post-college look-see, except for where he's gone, which is the Vienna Football League, whatever that is. We mentioned the breaks that ETSU got. How about this? In the 27-24 victory against Virginia Military that year, Virginia Military had the chance to tie the game up in the final minute with a 40-something yard field goal. It would have been, I believe, 48 yards, 47 yards, somewhere around there. The problem was their kicker, Grant Ramey, had never kicked a field goal longer than 41 yards. So they had to go for it in 4th and long and didn't make it and blah, blah, blah. Okay. This season, VMI has hired Chris Moore to be their special teams coach. He also coaches tight ends. This season, their field goal kicker, who missed a third of his extra points last year, has kicked a 56-yarder, and against Army, he kicked a 47-yarder, the very distance that would have tied the game up against ETSU, possibly won it for VMI last year. So, you look at the breaks that ETSU caught last year that were the other teams doing, not their own. And then you start looking at the injuries that ETSU has had this year, yet they stay in every game this year, whereas they just eke out victories last season. The thing that really got me that Randy Sanders did last year was the old subservience to Tennessee. Not ETSU in the shadow of Tennessee, subservience. And I mention this because if you remember the press conference before the Tennessee game, he said he would walk home naked carrying the goalpost if ETSU defeated the Volunteers. Now, how are you going to go down and even play against Tennessee if you make that opening statement? I remember covering ETSU opening up Heinz Field for the Pitt Panthers back in 2001, and Paul Hamilton, after the game, ETSU lost 31-0, but he said, I'm disappointed because I came here expecting to win the football game. That's the attitude you've got to take. I don't think Randy Sanders is going to say, I'll walk home naked with the goalposts on my back if ETSU beats Vanderbilt this upcoming week. Why shouldn't he? It's still an SEC opponent. My goodness, they're 2-8. Tennessee was coming off a 4-8 season the year before. What is the difference? Oh yeah, we're ETSU and we've got to be subservient to Tennessee. That's the only difference that has to stop, that was permeated by the coach last year. He's not doing it this year. That's all I need to know. This year, Randy Sanders has actually coached the team better than he did last year when he won the Southern Conference Championship. And I will also say to the Sanders critics, and there is room for criticism, but the one thing about Sanders is that you keep him on and you know that Billy Taylor will continue to be the defensive coordinator. And that is imperative for ETSU's success. Now, I know that you'll probably have Sanders critics that'll say, well, why don't you fire him and make Billy Taylor the head coach? And as much as I don't want to suppress the career advancement possibilities of Billy Taylor, you do run the risk of a Peter Principle situation in that regard. Just saying. It's a good thing that Billy Taylor is the defensive coordinator. I'm Marky Billson.